Hello and welcome to my personal protection Paladin guide. My name is Valcristo, and this guide is up to date as of patch 5.4, and any information in this video may become false in the future. I'll be going over all the necessary information you'll need to know about Paladin tanking. This will include gear and stat priority, your talents and glyphs, your spells, and basic tanking mechanics. Before I continue, I will say that the information you see here is openly available on various websites, such as Noxic and Elitist Jerks. Always remember, Google is your friend. Hit up WoW Heroes and other ranking sites to see who's doing well in the field you want to progress in, be it tanking, healing, or DPS. Now, starting at your gear and stat priority. Armor. While this stat gets left out a lot, at the very least be aware of it and know what it does. The more armor you have, the less physical damage you take. Stamina. If you didn't already know, this increases the amount of health you have. The more health you have, the more living you do. Living is very important for a tank. These are pro tips. Strength. While not high in your priority, I'll still mention it now because it's on all of your gear. This increases the amount of damage you do, and that translates into TPS, or threat per second. As tank, your main job is to make sure whatever baddie, be it a big baddie or a bunch of little ones, are hitting you and not your healer's DPS. Now, we'll talk about hidden expertise. After stamina, these will be your main stats you want to cap to ensure maximum TPS. Hit. If you're not hitting a boss or mob, you're not getting threat, and your DPS or healers are probably dying at this point. The number shoot for here is 2550, or 7.5% melee hit chance. Some people will swear on it being a necessity to have exactly 7.5%. Too little, you're missing your abilities. Too much, and that's a wasted stat elsewhere. However, I generally have no problem being a little under because, statistically, if you're 0.02% off your hit cap, that means 1 out of every 200 hits you'll miss, and I'm okay with those odds. Expertise. The number you're shooting for here is 5100, or 15% expertise. The reason for this is because you are melee. Your abilities are melee, and since you are the tank, you'll be in front of the boss or adds at all times, hopefully. This will ensure that you are not parried, and there will be no glancing blows that would otherwise mean less overall threat. After you've hit these caps, you can move on to the fun stats. Haste. Haste becomes important because the more you have, the faster you can use your abilities. The main idea behind Paladin tanking is to build up your holy power as quickly as possible and spend it as quickly as possible on your Shield of the Righteous ability, which increases your overall mitigation. Mastery. For now, wish to say that Mastery is a very strong stat. It increases your overall mitigation, as well as will allow for a powerful self-heal, but I'll go over that when I cover your passives. Parry. While very low on your stat priority, Parry is still a good ability to have for your passive called Grand Crusader. Because I don't have a lot to say about this stat other than it's an okay stat, I'll explain Grand Crusader. The passive makes your next Avenger Shield, firstly, come immediately off cooldown, and allows it to generate a holy power, which is important to keeping your major mitigation ability up. Dodge. Having the worst diminishing returns, dodge comes up at the end of your stat priority. Grand Crusader procs off of this as well, but with parry basically being the same mitigation with better diminishing returns, dodge ends up being less valuable than parry. Most sites will recommend that whatever your dodge may be, you will want 2.5 times that for your parry. So if you have 10% dodge, you'll want 25% parry. To quickly go over the rest of your gear, I'll cover enchants, gems, and reforging, and any modifications via professions. So for enchants, there aren't any for helm or neck enchants. Shoulders, you'll want Greater Oxhorn Inscription or the lesser version, for stamina and dodge. For cloak, you'll want Greater Protection, which increases stamina. Chest gives you superior stamina, which pretty much speaks for itself. Bracers, you'll want Mastery. Gloves, you'll want Greater Haste if you're not too squishy. Alternatively, Shaw Armor Kits for stamina. For your belt, put on a Living Steel Belt Buckle for the extra gem slot. Boots, you can either do Pandaren Step for Mastery and movement speed, or Haste. Both are fine choices. For your shield, you want to put on Greater Parry. It has parry. For your weapon, you want either Dancing Steel, which will proc Strength, Windsong, which will proc Haste, and I'll mention them, but they shouldn't be for Paladin tanks. Riversong will proc dodge, and Colossus grants a small bubble. Neither are really worth it. For your gems, your meta should either be Austere Primal Diamond, which is 324 stamina and 2% increased armor value from items, or if you've been doing your legendary quest and made it to the meta gem, then the Indomitable Primal Diamond, which is 324 stamina and a chance on hit to gain 20% damage reduction. Your Prismatic should be drowned in Quicksun's Radiance, which is the haste gen. For your blue slots, Guardian's Imperial Amethyst, which is expertise and stamina, Forceful Wild Jade, haste stamina, or Lightning Wild Jade, haste hit. I'm not mentioning the solid blue gem for pure stamina, just because even though we are tanks and stamina is important, we are no longer stacking stamina. All the pretty health in the world can't help you if you're squishy and not holding aggro. For your red slots, Guardians again, or Wicked Vermilion Onyx, which is expertise haste. Finally, for your yellow, you'll want Quicksun's Radiance, the haste one, or Forceful Wild Jade, haste stamina. When concerning socket bonuses, we are haste tanks now. We'll be getting a lot of plate DPS gear, so a lot of the bonuses will be strength. Again, while strength is fine for aggro, don't be afraid to avoid the socket bonus because 60 strength may not always be the best option, especially when you can afford more mastery or haste in there. At this point, you may be asking, why didn't you mention any gem with mastery? And the reason behind that is, even in higher end gear, you'll still want to be focusing on haste and expertise, just because 5100 cap for expertise is pretty high to maintain, and haste is the prettiest stat of all for us. Now, quickly for the professions. Alchemists, you have mixology. Blacksmiths, you can put your extra sockets on your bracers and gloves. Enchanters, you have stamina to your rings. Engineers, you have phase fingers. Inscriptionists, Secret Oxhorn Inscription. Jewel crafters, Fractured or Solid Serpent's Eye. Leatherworkers, fur lining for stamina. And tailors, you want Sword Guard Embroidery, good for threat. Now use your judgment on what you use for everything that I've mentioned to this point. Time for reforging. This will go fast. If you're not hit or expertise capped, get there now. Throw away dodge first. If you need more, then throw away some parry. If you need more than that, throw away some mastery. And if you need more than that, you should probably get some better gear. But in all seriousness, if you have to sacrifice haste for the expertise and hit caps, it's important for mob control and overall DPS, so do it. Once you've mastered your hit and expertise cap, haste and mastery on everything. Now you can use add-ons like Reforgelite or websites like Ask Mr. Robot to optimize your build, but when it comes to it, those should be seen more as guides than the final word for playing your tune. Don't be afraid to experiment. Time for your talents and glyphs. In your tier 1 spot, we have Speed of Light, which is a burst movement speed increase on a 45-second cooldown. We have Long Arm of the Law, which increases your movement speed after a judgment spell. And Pursuit of Justice, which is a passive 15% movement speed increase, plus 5% for each holy power you have. This goes up to 3, so basically another 15%. To be honest, I use Pursuit just because I like going a little faster at all times. I know plenty of people, and most websites recommend Speed of Light. It's a personal preference thing. Try them out, find out what you like. For Tier 2, Fist of Justice replaces Hammer of Justice. It's a 6-second stun on a 30-second cooldown. Repentance. It incapacitates an enemy for 1 minute. It's on a 15-second cooldown. Basically more useful for PvP or fights where you need a lot of CC. Evil is a point of view. It makes your turn evil ability, your fear, affect humanoids and beasts. I'll almost always go for Fist of Justice over the other two. They just don't seem as useful at the moment. Tier 3. Selfless Healer. Every time you use a judgment, you reduce cast time of your Flash of Light by 35%, and its effectiveness by 20% when used on other people. This stacks up to 3 times. If you do end up taking this, wait for the 3rd stack and use it on someone else. Eternal Flame. replaces your Word of Glory. It'll use up to 3 Holy Power and heal someone as well as put a hot on them. The more Holy Power you use, the better it heals. The hot also increases by 100% if used on you. Sacred Shield. Recently nerfed for protection paladins. It's a bubble, but not as effective for tanks. Don't pick it up. I'll almost always use Eternal Flame and avoid the other two. Tier 4, Hand of Purity. Puts a hand on a friendly target, reducing damage taken by 10%, and damage from harmful periodic spells by an additional 80% for 6 seconds on a 30-second cooldown. To be honest, I think I read this talent once when the new talent system was implemented, and never looked at it ever again. Next, Unbreakable Spirit. My love. Reduces the cooldown of Divine Shield, Divine Protection, and Lay on Hands by 50%. Clemency. Allows you to use your hands twice before setting off the cooldown. I don't know if you caught on, but I really like Unbreakable Spirit. But on fights where you may need it, Clemency is pretty nice. For your Tier 5, Holy Avenger. When you activate it, every ability that generates Holy Power will do 30% more damage and healing, and generate 3% Holy Power each time for 18 seconds on a 2-minute cooldown. Sanctified Wrath has different effects for each spec, but I'll only go over the protection one. Your Avenging Wrath lasts 50% longer, and reduces the cooldown of your judgment by 50%, and your judgment now gives you an additional Holy Power. You also get healed for 20% more. Divine Purpose. Abilities that cost Holy Power have a chance to proc Divine Purpose, which makes your next Holy Power ability to be used as if you had 3 charges for free. Holy Avenger is my go-to because it's short cooldown, and allows for your Shield of the Righteous spam, which, by the way, the buff duration stacks. For your final tier, Holy Prism, you can damage an enemy and heal 5 people, or you can heal 1 person and damage 5 enemies. Light's Hammer basically acts as a better consecration. Does damage to enemies, slows them, and heals everyone within it. Execution Sentence. It's an ability that you can use on a friendly target to heal or an enemy to damage. And the way it works is it'll do a little damage, and then a little more, and then a little more, and then a little more until it reaches the target and does burst damage or healing. Holy Prism is on the shortest cooldown, which is why I prefer it, but you can justify using any of them at any point in time. It's preference and encounter base. Now your glyphs. Alabaster Shield is a must. Every time you block, it increases the amount of damage your Shield of the Righteous does by 10%, and this stacks 3 times. Divine Protection reduces its effectiveness against magical damage, but increases it for physical damage. This makes an amazing ability even better. I recommend using it. Battle Healer. If you're rocking Seal of Insight, you heal the most wounded member of your party or raid by 30% of what it would have healed you for. Basically only used during high damage fights that you may be struggling on. Glyph of Consecration allows you to throw your consecration 25 yards away. Divine Shield heals you for 10% for each debuff removed by it when you use Divine Shield. This can exceed more than 50% of your maximum health. Cannot. Final Wrath. When an enemy is under 20% health, Holy Wrath does 50% more damage. This is good for AoE pulls. Focus Shield increases the damage of Avenger Shield by 30%, but Avenger Shield no longer bounces like it would. Harsh Words. You can't use this with Eternal Flame, but it damages an enemy for what Word of Glory would have healed you for. Your monoglyphs are all really for aesthetic purposes. However, Righteous Retreat is basically your bubble hearth, and Falling Avenger reduces fall damage you take while Avenging Wrath is active. We're almost done, don't quit on me now, we're hitting up the spells part of this. I'll go over rotation later, but for now I'm focusing on abilities and passives and what they do. Ardent Defender reduces damage taken by 20%, and an attack that would otherwise kill you will heal you now for 15% of your maximum health. This is on a 3-minute cooldown. Avenger Shield. You throw your shield at an enemy dealing damage and jumping to 2 other nearby enemies. This can be used as an interrupt. Avenging Wrath. Increases damage and healing done by 20% for 20 seconds. Blessing of Kings is 5% to all stats. Blessing of Might is 3000 mastery buff. Blinding Light. As a tank, This is instant. It disorients enemies for 6 seconds in a 10-yard radius. This is good for multi-mob tanking and interrupts if needed. The daze ends after 6 seconds or if the mobs get hit. Cleanse. Removes all poison and disease effects from one person. This is on an 8-second cooldown. Consecration is a 9-second AoE to all enemies. Crusader Strike does single target damage, generates holy power, and puts the weakened blows debuff on an enemy. Weakened blows reduces physical damage done by 10% for 30 seconds. Devotion Aura reduces magic damage taken by the raid by 20% in a 40-yard radius for 8 seconds. This also makes them immune to silence and interrupts. Divine Protection reduces magic damage taken by 40% for 10 seconds. Divine Shield protects you from all damage and spells, but you only do 50% damage in this state. This lasts 8 seconds. Flash of Light is a quick, expensive heal. Guardian of the Ancient Kings. It does different things for each spec, but for Prat, it reduces damage taken by 50% for 12 seconds. Hammer of the Righteous is an 8-yard AoE hit. Generates 1 holy power and applies weakened blows to all enemies within 8 yards. Hammer of Wrath is our kill shot. Can only be used when a mob is under 20% health. Hand of Freedom makes you immune to all movement and parrying effects. Hand of Protection protects someone for 10 seconds from all damage, but they can attack or do physical damage under protection. Hand of Sacrifice, used on a party or raid member, it redirects 30% of damage taken to you, lasts 10 seconds, and can't exceed 100% of your maximum health. Hand of Salvation removes all threat from someone for 10 seconds. Holy Wrath does damage to all enemies within 10 yards and stuns demons and undead. Judgment does single target damage and generates holy power. Lay on Hands heals a friendly target for your maximum health. Rebuke interrupts and locks the target out of that spell class for 4 seconds. Reckoning, it's your taunt. If you already have aggro on the target you're using this on, you'll get 200% more threat. Redemption is your res. Righteous Fury is your main source of threat and it increases your threat generation. Seal of Insight increases your casting speed by 10% and improves healing by 5% and heals you for each melee hit that you do. Seal of the Righteous does 9% weapon damage to all enemies within 8 yards. Seal of the Truth applies Censure and melee attacks do 12% holy damage. Censure is a dot that can stack up to 5 times. Shield of the Righteous. Not only does this beautiful ability do damage, but it also reduces damage taken based off your mastery. The damage reduction lasts 3 seconds. This also gives you the Bastion of Glory buff, which stacks 5 times, and for each stack, makes your Word of Glory or Eternal Flame heal for 30% more. Bastion also benefits from mastery. Turn Evil. This is your fear against undead, demons, and aberrations. Causes them to flee for 40 seconds. Boundless Conviction is a passive. You can now hold 5 holy power instead of 3. Grand Crusader. We talked about this, but if you forgot, every dodge or parry you have a 30% chance of refreshing the cooldown of your Avenger Shield and having it generate 1 holy power if used within 6 seconds. Guarded by the Light increases your stamina by 25%, block chance by 10%, reduces the chance you'll be melee critted by 6%, Word of Glory is not on the same global cooldown anymore, and your spell power is now 50% of your attack power. Finally, you regenerate 15% of your maximum mana over every 2 seconds. Heart of the Crusader increases your mounted speed by 20%. Judgment of the Wise. Your judgment hits now grant 1 holy power. Mastery. Divine Bulwark. Increase the damage reduction of your Shield of the Righteousness, increase your Bastion of Glory, and increase your block chance to melee hits. This is all dependent on your mastery. Parry is a passive that allows you to parry. Plate Specialization increases your stamina by 5% for having all plate pieces. Sanctity of Battle. Melee haste effects lower the global cooldown of basically all of your major abilities. Sanctuary reduces damage taken by 15%, increased armor value from items by 10%, and increases chance to dodge by 2%. Supplication. After a killing blow on a mob that grants experience or honor, your next flashlight will be a crit. Vengeance. Finally, the best thing about taking huge groups on, if you can live through it. 1.5% of all unmitigated damage you take is transferred to attack power, which increases your damage and your DPS, and your TPS. Bam. That's all of your spells. Now, since there's no more spell rotation, we have a priority. Firstly, you'll want to have Righteous Fury up at all times. For your seals, single target, you'll want Seal of Truth. AoE, you'll want Seal of the Righteousness. And in both cases, once you know you have enough threat and you won't be losing threat, you can switch to Seal of Insight to help out your healers. Anyways, like I said, you want to build up your holy power as quickly as possible and spend it as quickly as possible so that you don't take a lot of damage. So, for single target situations, your priority will be first, Crusader Strike on cooldown, then Judgment, then Avenger Shield, whether you proc a Grand Crusader or not, then use the ability you took in your final tier, then Holy Wrath on cooldown, Hammer of Wrath on cooldown during the kill phase, and Consecration on cooldown. Every time you have 3 holy power, use Shield of the Righteous. For AoE situations, instead of Crusader Strike, substitute Hammer of Righteous, and spam Consecration and Holy Wrath as much as possible. At this point, you just have to hope that your DPS either knows how to throttle, or you have enough DPS yourself in Vengeance to hold everything. Now, like I promised, basic tanking mechanics. This can be used for almost any tank in the game, or even any role. One of the most important things that I'll always state is awareness. Be aware of your surroundings, be aware of your timers, be aware of battle on the floor. Just constantly keep your eyes trained to see something out of the ordinary. At this point in the game, you've hit 90, and you've geared yourself up enough to do raids and PvE in general. So, you should not have to look at your keyboard or your action bars to see what to do next. Movement. Have the ability to be mobile. It's very important as a tank, especially on fights like Shamans and Siege of Orgrimmar. Knowing where to move and when to move, not only keep yourself, but your other raiders alive, is critical. Move too slow, you die. Move too fast, you die. The reason I mention these two first is because they'll go hand in hand. It's nice being top of the DPS or heal charts, and it's nice to see that you can hold 100 mobs at once without DPS stealing aggro from you, but it's not nice dying in any case. If you see bad forming under you, if you notice the boss going to do something that you can get away from, be ready to be mobile. Positioning. Positioning can be huge. If you set yourself up in a corner with a boss that knocks back, you're golden and your recovery rate will be perfect. If you learn how to reset a boss on a wipe, so not everyone has to suffer a repair bill, you'll be loved. Learn how to position yourself and force a boss into your perfect position. Advice and outside information. The last thing I can say for tanking mechanics is to seek advice and outside information. If it's for a fight, YouTube the encounter videos. If it's for what spell, or gem, or enchant, or where to do farm, don't be afraid of trade chat or hitting up the forums. Like I said in the beginning, Google is your friend. Embrace it. As goofy as it'll sound, an informed player is a good player. By informed, I also don't mean be stubborn on how you do things. Be kind when giving and receiving advice. Closed-mindedness may make you the bane of your group. Be open to new ways. Finally, after imparting all of this knowledge onto you, lastly I ask, take everything I say with a grain of salt. I am not the Mac Daddy of Paladins. I am not world known. I'm barely server known. But I've been playing a Paladin for 7 or 8 years now, and I've been tanking almost that entire time. I started out horribly, but I learned. I took my time getting down every aspect of being a Paladin. I can't emphasize enough, this is a game. Have fun. You pay $15 a month for fun. So, thanks for watching. Like this video, dislike this video. Any questions? Go ahead and leave a comment. Trolls, come at me, bro. Haters, say it, don't spray it. And to all the interwebs, I hope you enjoy. Thank you.